Good afternoon. I'm Cara, and today I'll be interviewing the Eastern Woodland native. I'll be asking you a few questions.
Wonderful.
What is your name?
My friends call me Shecky Spooty, which is a Delaware name for, well, let's just say it. Part of it means pretty, but they just call me Shecky.
Okay.
Shecky Spooty.
What tribe do you come from?
I portray any number of Eastern Woodland tribes that would have lived in Ohio during the 18th century, because they, by this time period, had all kind of started looking the same in the way they dressed and stuff. It's easier to portray a native, a typical native, rather than a specific native. So, for the purpose of this interview, I guess I can be Delaware.
Okay. What are the common things a tribe eats?
Excuse me, some of the common things they eat. To understand what they ate, you have to understand what Ohio was like during the 18th century. Ohio was very heavily wooded, and because of that, there was an abundance of game. You eat anything from deer, buffalo, elk, duck, squirrel, raccoon, possum, any number of fish, passenger pigeons. They would eat a lot of that. Any number of things to fish, catfish, sturgeon, just tons of fish. And then again, because of the heavy wooded nature of Ohio, you had all kinds of nuts and fruits that were available. So when they could get food, they ate very well.
What would a tribe wear?
What would a tribe wear? By this time period of the 18th century, the tribes had, for the most part, gotten rid of the furs and leathers that they had worn prior to white Europeans coming to the United States. So by this time period, they would be wearing a lot of European manufactured clothes. So if you just take a look at what I'm wearing right now, the shirt is a ruffled, lacy type shirt made out of linen. I'm wearing a wool blanket with silk ribbon on it. I would have traded my leather leggings for leggings made of wool, again with silk. Shoes of European nature. I could wear jackets, waistcoats, hats, silk scarves, jewelry made of generally sterling silver, but also of brass and copper. Women could wear wool leggings. They would wear match coats. They would wear wool wrap skirts. They would wear women-type shirts, lacy shirts or plain shirts made of linen or cotton, jackets. So there was a multitude of material, of European-made stuff that the natives of this time period were wearing, which kind of goes against what everybody usually thinks of Indians wearing, skins and furs and stuff. But, to see a native wearing a shirt like this was not uncommon. So just to give you for the example, and weights, and this blanket, this match coat. So those are just some of the type of things they would have worn.
What kind of work did the adults do?
The kind of work the adults did. The women did a lot of stuff around the villages and the towns. They took care of the kids. They took care of the lodging, gathering firewood, cooking, taking care of gardens, taking care of the fields when they were farming. They would take care of the skins that the men would bring in for dressing. And men would do a lot of the hunting, fishing. They might do some of the clearing of the fields for farming. They did the protecting of the village. And, of course, they would do the warfare. So they would go to war against other native tribes. And then they would go to war with against the French or British Americans, either on their own or when they were allied with other European nations, be it the French, British, or the Americans. So I think the villages were busy, and everybody had their place and kind of knew what they needed to do.
How many chiefs did one tribe have?
I would say at any one time you might have two types of chiefs. You would have a peace chief who took care of day-to-day things in a village, and then you would have a war chief who would be in charge of obviously warfare.
How many wars were there when Indians were involved?
The time period of the Eastern Woodland tribes mirrors a lot of what was going on in colonial America. So anytime from time of Christopher Columbus and Europeans coming to the shores of America up until their removal in the 1830s and 40s, there was usually some kind of a war, a battle going on. Just in the 18th century alone, you had 4 or 5 major wars going on. The big three would be the French and Indian War, the American Revolution, and then the Indian Wars of the 1790s. All that ending with the War of 1812, and smaller battles and wars going up until the Indians were finally removed in the 1820s, 30s, and 40s. So,
who did some Indians trade with?
Your big traders were other natives themselves, but mostly it was Europeans. Natives would trade with the British, the French. Later on, with the Americans, they traded with the French, or I'm sorry, the Spanish. Farther west, they would trade with the Russians. They would trade with Spanish coming out of Mexico, Dutch, Portuguese. But your big three were your French, your British, and your Americans. And most of what everybody was trading, natives were generally trading skins and furs, mostly white-tailed deer, but also elk, buffalo, and other number of fur-bearing animals. We would trade them to the Europeans for manufactured goods, clothing, weapons, and other sundry items that we would use on a day-to-day basis.
How many Indian tribes are there now?
Specifically, I don't know how many there are, but there are still quite a number of tribes that maintain reservations, mostly out west, up in the Dakotas, Montana. I know in Texas they have them, and North Carolina, Florida. So there's still a number of tribes with tribal homes and reservations throughout the United States. Now, in Ohio specifically, there are no recognized native tribes living in Ohio on a reservation. Now, there are bands of natives that have come back to areas that they had traditionally been in, but they are not recognized by the government. So there's still plenty of natives out there.
Thank you for your time.
You're very welcome. Anytime.
I know that you're busy Indian doing things like fishing, hunting, and protecting. I appreciate this interview. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Anytime.